Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa he tino whakamoemiti a hau ki te tū I Wainganui ki a koutou I te rānei. So it's my great pleasure to be here, to be standing and sitting amongst you today and to share this work. I'm really excited to share some of my experiences as a leader of residents at Oxford University with the Atlantic Institute, which finished up last year. And I was invited to join a team of people to work on a global leadership program that would really help support the efforts of the fellows at the Atlantic Institute to really develop and create that impact that Roger was talking about for the communities in which they work. And I've got a quote here by Khalil Goga, who is my direct support at the Atlantic Institute. He's one of the associate executive directors based in South Africa. And he describes the role in the book's forward. By bringing on the leader in residence, we could tell the story of this unique, interconnected ecosystem and develop narratives of catalytic leadership that work towards addressing systemic issues of injustice, inequity, and oppression, whilst pursuing lasting and meaningful change. So as Roger mentioned, I love writing. I'm in my mojo space when I write. So I really appreciated the opportunity to work very closely with a group of foundational storytellers who gravitated towards me and towards this work. I'm also very grateful to the Atlantic Institute, who received an enormous endowment to pursue this work in the world. And so they've made the books open access. So thanks to their generosity, these books are available for download for free. These are the amazing foundational storytellers who really helped me catalyze this work in the world. They are their warriorship, I guess you would say, or the ways in which they take action are catalysts, take many forms. We have poets, musicians, neuroscientists. We've got surgeons who work in refugee camps in Vietnam, people who work out in the field in health in Africa, South Africa. We've got people that work in displacements with genocide, just incredible people of immense courage who really take action in the ways that they can to make this world a better place for all. And they really brought their lived experience to this work. And I think one of the things I particularly appreciate about my role as a professor of leadership, but as a writer, is to be a channel to help their stories be more visible in this world. So when I first arrived at Oxford University with my university ethics approval to interview them and have them to sign contracts, one of the first things I experienced was a lot of discomfort. And I'm going to talk about that shortly because they weren't interested in my academic credentials to do these interviews with them with my pieces of paper from the university. So that was one of my first experiences of this work. It really helped shape me. It took me to different edges in myself. So one of the things that they don't like, and as I mentioned, I work with leaders of all walks of life, they didn't like the word leadership. They felt that was associated with privilege, with status, with systems of power. And so I had to really step back and rethink my approach. And fortunately, I booked a trip to Ireland after I'd gone to Oxford University and met everybody. And I had a couple of weeks there where I drove around the wild Atlantic Way, if anyone's done that journey. It's absolutely fabulous. And also looking into the histories, whakapapa of my father, whose ancestors come from Ireland. So slowly emerged a different approach on how I could work with these fellows from all over the world. What was it that held them together? What were the mutualities? What was that connective tissue? And so eventually this idea of a catalyst came up. And rather than being a proxy for leadership, I saw that it could be its own thing, that these were people who were amazing alchemists. They worked with different elements and they would fuse it together and then they would ignite change. So I floated the idea of this the Catalyst Way with the foundational storytellers, and they were on board. We co-designed our ethics approval based on their experience, and hence it was really wonderful for myself to understand how I could work differently. So there's 3 principles from the book which Roger can send out the links for, but it's this idea, first of all, hope, so activated hope, which I'm going to talk about. Also courage, and that immense courage that they each embodied, and the courage that I want to acknowledge in the room through your decisions that you make to invest, which in a way that makes a difference, and the courage that takes, and also authenticity. So the first one of hope, sorry the slides aren't that clear for you, a fundamental quality of a leader that Roger has spoken of and is most highly rated by ethical leaders in investment is what I describe in the book, The Catalyst Way, as a quality of activated hope. It's a sense that taking purposeful action will change outcomes and make a positive impact, and in this case, by creating sustainable wealth and well-being. Ethical investors and the business leaders they regard most highly recognise that sharp dissonance between how things are and how they could be, particularly regarding sustainable development, those economic, social, and environmental goals. They take a pragmatic approach to shift the collective needle to a better envisioned future. So they hold a vision of the future and then taken a very pragmatic, practical appraisal of the current context. So, as we say, they're neither deluded by naive optimism nor paralysed by despair. So in the book, I share many stories from the foundational stories about how some of them develop and cultivate this sense of activated hope. And for many of them, they're working literally out in the field, saving lives. They're working in really quite difficult circumstances. And I drew upon the research of Sarah Ray, who's leads an environmental studies program at Humboldt State University. And she describes this cycle where action delivers results which fosters hope. So this really engaged cycle which leads to more action. So as Sarah says, hope is the byproduct of action, not the prerequisite for it. So they have this capacity to hold a radical imagination which they're committed to in their teams and in their communities all around the world. And ethical investors share this mindset of a deep-seated conviction that things can become better if we make a conscious choice to act. And often that does require courage to not be a silent majority or a bystander, but to step forward with courage. The second piece is exploring the chamber of discomfort. Now that came out of my direct lived experience of meeting the fellows for the first time. And it was very much a learning edge for me. I realised that it took me to a new place in myself. And I could see and observe these fellows, these people doing this incredible work, coming together, that they had a capacity to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, to be inside the discomfort. And ethical leaders, as well as investors, such as yourselves, do have that courage to experience the discomforts at times. That naturally arises when we're questioning the shortcomings of more conventional ways of doing things or business as usual. So as I discuss as part of this leadership development program or this Catalyst's Way, bringing awareness to our discomforts can be a doorway to insight, where we go to the edge and we receive a different view, where we listen and tune in and also speak up and stand by our convictions. Discomfort can mean standing up even when it makes us uncomfortable. And as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that really matter. So conventional business leaders and investors, and Roger's been in the vanguard of change for decades now in this nation, and particularly when overseas there was these trajectories and this momentum, but not happening here in New Zealand. And it was more comfortable for people to be silent. And yet now we're seeing a sea change as this gains more and more traction and recognition. So ethical investors are speaking, with their money and investing in impact and investing in change, and that it's an energy to change the world. I was also really privileged to work with Augustin Ibanez. Augustin was one of the foundational storytellers, and he guided me to develop this program, also looking at a neuroscience perspective. He is a neuroscientist with the Global Brain Health Institute in Dublin. And so part of the process is, as you can see here on the slide, we've got that red part. That is the chamber of discomfort. And that is the place where our emotional regulation takes place. Some of you might have heard of the amygdala hijack, which occurs when our limbic brains override our intelligence, our ability to respond well. We can just end up reacting to the world. We can get triggered and make decisions based on what feels safe, rather than to really step back and to be able to consider different choices. Then we've also got the blue side, which is the reflection side, again with Augustin's help. So that side of the brain where our creativity, our storytelling, the ability to stop, pause and reflect, which aligns very beautifully with Stoic philosophy. If there are any fans of Marcus Aurelius, he talks about the importance of leaders who take that time to reflect. And in the front we've got that yellow section, the prefrontal cortex, where we sort of start to blend things together to make sense, to make decisions, and then over to the action hemisphere, that green side. And these fellows were great at taking action. They responded to action, and that was their first step. And it took some time to really create a space where reflection was seen as an important part of a holistic learning loop, because for some of them, to take that time to reflect cost lives, and they felt they couldn't give themselves that permission to be able to sit back and reflect and to do their own developmental journey. But also, we don't want to get stuck in the chamber of discomfort, sort of in an echo chamber, but to go on that journey of discovery, which I talk about in Wayfinding Leadership. Also, that discover means to break up, to fragment in some way, to be on that journey of change ourselves. And if there's any Leonard Cohen fans in the room, yes, I'm good. I'm glad I haven't reached that age where no one remembers Leonard Cohen. But that sort of, he talks about in his song Anthem about a crack of light, the cracks. And that in that cracking, that's how the light gets in and we gain new perspective. So even though it's not the most comfortable place, it also can be that place where we do gain new insight and perspective as we move from the chamber of discomfort and heal from some of our traumas, particularly with the communities and the work they were doing. And I was privileged yesterday to give a keynote to an international librarians conference on wayfinding leadership. And this came up as well for them, because they're dealing with works that they called vicarious trauma. So I want to just finish by acknowledging you all, to each and every one of you, for being catalysts in your ways that you take action in this world, for being here and for making a difference in this world, for being champions of change. And also the organisations that Roger will be recognising later on today. I'm really happy during the breaks to have a chat if you'd like to know more about the Catalyst Way, but it's really wonderful to be able to launch it, celebrate it here in New Zealand. I did hold a workshop at Oxford University for or more of these catalysts who came, and we spent a day together so that I could gift it to them to take it back to their communities. And I love staying in touch with them too, because this world needs more people like you. Kia ora.
Power and magic of transformation, alive and real for all people. Power and magic of transformation, alive and real for all people. This is who we are. This is what you can count on. Opportunity to make a difference. Profound privilege of causing as a catalyst leader my own transformation. Transformation of others and the transformation of life itself. This is who we are. This is what you can count on. Freedom, freedom to be, giving yourself to all of life, living a life of possibility, integrity, responsibility. This is who we are. This is what you can count on. Aotearoha, mai te rangi me te whenua. Tu tangata, Aotearoha, mai te rangi me te whenua. Tu wairua. This is who we are, and this is what you can count on. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, Rauri. It's beautiful.
Okay, well, this karakia is very brief, but what it speaks of is peace, joy, and laughter. So let this day continue in that way. Kia tau te rangi Māori e kia tātou katoa. Kia piki te kaha, kia piki te ora. Kia piki te māramatanga. Haumie, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora.